Hello and welcome to the next part of our series, the Head to Heart series in leadership from eVidyaloka. eVidyaloka is a not-for-profit social enterprise, and we are into education for children in rural India. Currently, we educate 20,000 plus children across 245 villages. Around 2,500 of our volunteers deliver close to 1 million child learning hours every year. The best part is that all this comes at a cost of just rupees 10 per day per child. So for about 3,650 rupees, you can actually educate a child for a whole year. We are doing this series on leadership. It's called the Head to Heart series. And today we have with us Mr. S V Venkataraman, or Venki as we call him. Venki is the Managing Director of the Bangalore Service Center of ANZ Bank. And in his role, he is in charge of a very large operation delivering technology and banking operations for the bank on a global basis. Venki started his career in Grindlays Bank, ANZ Grindlays Bank, did various roles, and then went on to take on very senior roles with the Aditya Birla Minax, with Pero Systems, and then came back to the ANZ banking group. He headed up operations of the institutional bank across 30 countries. And then he was also the COO of ANZ India when it set up its banking operations back earlier this century. And Venki now is this managing director of this center. An alumnus of IIT Kharagpur and IIM Ahmedabad. He is someone who's very passionate about bringing diversity into the organizations that he works with. He's also a huge proponent of intelligent automation. So he's done a lot of work in robotic process automation, in artificial intelligence and machine learning. Venki, I thank you so much for accepting to be a part of this Head to Heart series, and welcome to it.
Thank you very much, Ravi. It's my privilege to be associated with eVidyaloka and for this series. I think our association goes back much beyond the last few years, right? So we were both together in Grindlays, and one of the pleasures of coming back to Bangalore to run this outfit was to actually connect with you after so many years. And it's absolute wonderful thing that eVidyaloka is doing, led by you and several others. And we find it to be our privilege to be associated with eVidyaloka in promoting what is undoubtedly the #1 priority for this country. So thank you very much for doing it. Thank you very much for keeping us a part of that. And we look forward to continue working with you.
Thank you so much, Venki. So Venki, I have known you as a person who practices mindfulness as a leader. What has always foxed me is, how do you bring this to real life, both at work and at home?
See, mindfulness is actually a practice. The way I see it is, it's not that you suddenly wake up one day, read a book, and you become mindful. So it's taken me years, and I don't think I'm still, 100% there. And there are several times when I should be mindful, and I'm not mindful. So it's still, you tend to slip into bad habits. So, but it's been a journey over the last few years. As you know, I started my career as a foreign exchange trader. I used to deal foreign exchange so it's a very, very exciting market, rapidly moving, and you can lose your money. It doesn't hurt you so much as losing your employer's money, the bank's money, when you lose it, right? So mindfulness is as far away from there as chalk and cheese. You can hardly be mindful in that scenario. However, I learned it pretty early that a calm approach to work really helps. So that was my journey start, if I may say so, in mindfulness. So living in the present, having a good understanding of your current emotions and feelings and thinking is what represents mindfulness for me. And that really helped as we started building through various, and as I moved through various roles, building through various organizations, I realized that one of the things that really helps is actually just the ability to be calm and quiet and listen to others. So, which means be in the moment, give full attention and focus to whatever you're doing. So, if you're listening to your teams, then just give full attention to that, because that really helps, rather than think of what happened yesterday or think what you will do just after the meeting. So, as the benefits of doing that became clear, I think the practice became deeper and deeper. So it's a journey. I'm somewhere, I've just started. I'm a beginner in this. The other elements of mindfulness, such as meditation and spending time introspecting, etc., comes later. I think just living in the moment, just focusing all your energies, attention on the thing that is on the table at the moment, is what I have been practicing as mindfulness, and that seems to have worked for me.
Wonderful, Venki. This living in the moment is an amazing concept. When thousands of years ago, when Gautam Buddha actually talked of mindfulness, and in his language, Pali, he called it Smriti.
Correct.
And he said that's the first step of being in total awareness of around you and being in the moment, is the journey towards actually a realization and a self-realization. Now, recently, Sadhguru Sadhguru Jagivastevya, he keeps talking of, hey, we have two brilliant faculties. One is memory and one is imagination. And we suffer both of them because we are always reminded of something in the past which we don't like. And we are always worried about the future. So we seem to suffer both these aspects, forgetting that we need to live in the here and now, which is there, and ruining the current moment.
Correct.
So what are your thoughts around this?
No, actually, I think of all the senses that we have, what we have here, the ears are probably the most important. They say entire life is between the 2 ears. I think it's the two edges that matter, the 2 ears, because if you can practice listening to others, and that's what I have learned. I was not a great listener. You come from the same sort of background. You are always on the move. We want to get things done, and so we want to somehow push our ideas and thoughts faster. Intent is great, but I think unless you have the ability to sit back and listen to others, listen to what's going on around you, I think it will be a failure. So, my essential element of mindfulness, particularly when we manage large teams, etc., in the leadership space, is, I think, just being able to listen and listen with focus and energy at that point in time. So don't let anything else distract you. I think that's, to my mind, a really important element. And over the period you realize, so one of the things that I've realized is small things do not matter, right? So why fret over things that one have either passed away or we don't know what's going to happen. So this is a realization that probably comes with age. When you lose your hair or when it turns gray, that's when it comes. So sometimes it's too late. I wish we knew this when we were younger.
So Venki, when I was looking at your own journey in leadership, I saw so much of focus that you put into diversity and how you bring in diversity into the organizations that you work with. And it's not just about gender diversity that I'm talking of. It's been a whole gamut of diversity. So what are your thoughts on diversity, and why do you think it is essential in large organizations such as what you're leading now?
Yeah. See, look, a society is represented by several types of people, right? And types of people based on gender, based on abilities, based on intellect, based on which organ sort of works more effectively for some, etc. So it's only fair that the organizations and the smaller ecosystems that we are managing reflects that. It's simply a big benefit out of that is simply the fact that you get to hear diverse thoughts and thinking. Now, in any small project, so let's say we are doing up our house, I think having multiple views helps. I can come up with an idea around what is practical. My wife can come up with what colors work well. My children can come up with what will make the place more interesting. I think we end up delivering a far better result, even in a small project that we do every time. I think we have experienced that as a family, and we have seen that in families where there is a big boss and who drives it, largely turn up dysfunctional. At some point, you see rebellion, and it is anti society. Society is coming together. So if anything which sort of breaks it apart is not okay. So I think that's the fundamental benefit of diversity. Just the fact that you can have a very, very different outlook to problems. And so instead of having a tested solution that you have tried and it has worked for you, you get an avenue to try out new things. And sometimes you may be surprised, and most times you are surprised because you end up with an outcome that's far superior to what you would have yourself made a choice if you had to make the decision. So I think that's the primary aim of diversity. So in ANZ, we did a lot of things. We also started our journey from the easiest one, which is gender, right? So if there is 50% representation of women, then we must have at least 50% of our staff women. But then we realized that that's not fully imbibing the spirit of diversity. Spirit of diversity should give opportunities to every component in the society. So in the last few years, we have really focused on looking at how we employ people with special ability. How do we get in and assimilate their skills, their abilities in an organization without creating too much of friction within the teams, right? And that's where carrying the whole organization became a really important element. So once you educate others on diversity, you find that everyone wants to be part of a diverse setup. So then it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. In the last few years, we have also focused on transgender, LGBTQ, the whole thing. It's not easy because these groups in the society have been exploited and underutilized for so long that they have got a huge gap to even reach a situation where we can gainfully employ them. So one of the first steps that we did was actually launch a sort of a managerial orientation coaching class, almost like a school for 2 months, where we taught them the entire thing, elements around being a corporate member of a large company. What does it mean to be an employee of a large firm? What does it mean to communicate well? What does it mean to stand up in front of a group of people and present your thoughts confidently, right? Those are things that came to us because we worked over several years, right? So we needed to get them up to a point. Then we offered them a plank, sort of like a university where you get in companies and they do campus interviews. We did the same thing. We got 7, 8 of those large firms and got these people exposed to them, and all of them got placed. I think those were the big wins that we learned from. And so in the last few years as ANZ, we have really focused hard on diversity, and just not gender, just not one element of diversity. And I think it is yielding us big results, because what it teaches the larger team is an ability to work with even more different sets of ideas and thoughts, and it teaches everybody empathy. And I think empathy is what keeps the world going, right? If you can empathize with someone who is going through a very different set of issues than you are going through, you, one, learn how to tackle those, and two, you learn to tolerate and accept. I think that acceptance, empathy was the biggest benefit out of this, and the people responded beautifully. So almost everyone has signed up for this, and I think we are very proud that as an organization we are being considered as one of the foremost companies as far as diversity goes. And even as recently as last month, we got the champion in women hiring for ANZ. We're very proud of many of these achievements, and I think of all the recognitions that we get, this one means a lot to us, and we are really proud to win them.
Amazing, Venki. Also, I see this when you talk of empathy, which is such a fantastic concept. I read somewhere that when we hear, okay, I empathize with you, we visualize it as I as one circle and you as one circle, connected by a line called empathy. But this research which this gentleman had done in Korea was that he said that, hey, there's actually one circle. I and you as one circle, but divided by a line, one single line called judgment. And he said the faster you rub this line out, this circle will not become a whole.
No.
So, an amazing concept when you talk of empathy and why it is so essential to have that as a component in bringing about diversity. Honestly, Venki, this is the first time I'm hearing any leader talk on empathy in conjunction with diversity. So, an excellent thing.
So I'm really glad that we are part of this, and it really helps make better people out of all of us. And we all know that we all want to be considered good. We want to be associated with good, and this is the right time, right? Dussehra is all about goodness, triumphing over evil. So I think being associated with the right things, ensuring people get a chance to be good as human beings, I think is a big plus, and we are very proud of that.
A great one. Also, Venki, I've seen you again in your career. You've done so many roles in banking, in operations, in front office, back office, middle office. I mean, you name it, you've done all the roles. And I'm sure, all these roles have been different in so many ways. And each time you took a role, you may have had to reskill yourself. You may have had to unlearn certain things, learn certain things, relearn certain things. So what are your thoughts around this a constant learning process?
I think there's no question. So one of the biggest sort of learning over the years is that the day you stop learning, and learning I use sort of in a very wide sense, right? I think you will stop growing as a professional. There is no question. So I'm really glad that I got this opportunity to try new things, keep building my skills. In this journey, one thing I figured out is you don't unlearn a skill, you don't unlearn knowledge in the traditional sense, but you unlearn some habits. So that's what I figured out. So, for example, in the early career of mine, in the banking world, in the dealing room, in the hot sort of position, tempers running high, abusive, name calling, all was game there. You realize that the what matters hugely, the how does not matter that to that extent. Whereas in real life, actually, how should be as important as what, and probably more important, right? And other roles that I did, I realized that the how is very good. There are organizations which are warm and fuzzy, they just want to be nice, but they miss out the what. So the biggest learning I had, which helped me navigate this entire journey, was what and how have to be really going hand in hand. If somebody achieves everything in the KRA, but did it by creating bad blood with 30 other entities in the group that they interact with, it's not a great thing. You might have met the financial objectives, but you have created a very, very unsavory, toxic sort of environment. On the other hand, someone who's very, very warm and fuzzy, nice to interact with, great person, but does not achieve what is required, that also is not a great thing. So one of the things that I learned is it's a need to be a big mix, and that I think is the biggest learning here for me. And as you move through various roles, the other bit is you develop skills and competency that helps you prepare for the next role. So everything is a preparation for that eventual next role, and it keeps running, right? And finally, I think the final role is to be a good human being, which you reach at some point in life. So that's where you aim for. So I think I have really enjoyed this journey. For me, variety is definitely the spice of life. But one thing we cannot forget is there is an element of foundational habits, behaviors, knowledge, skills that we have all got over the years, which allows you to actually try new things, learn new things, etc. So, for example, when I moved into the technology world, I knew very little about technology. I was a user of Excel and Office, right? So my first job was to actually sell technology solutions to capital market firms, very large investment management companies. And that taught me the benefit of reading a lot. So, you can you can substitute on the job, which to some extent by reading, and then interacting with the right people, building the right networks, building relationships, where are things that you build as additional skills over the years. And I think each of those jobs have contributed to me in a variety of ways, which has helped me prepare for the next role. And I'm really glad that I got this opportunity to try different things, and I wouldn't change this for anything. My father spent doing the same job for 40 years. He was in civil services. But I think when I look back, I am enjoying every bit of this. So I'm figuring out what next after running a back office for a bank, and let's see what it is. We'll see how it goes.
So how did this education in possibly the best universities in the country, whether it is IIT or IIM, they're the best colleges or places to go to study. So how did that, and if you map it to your career to say, how do you think that worked for you in terms of the start that it gave you, the learnings that you could bring from there and actually implement in your career?
Absolutely. So, both are great institutions, and I'm really proud that I got a chance to be there. I don't think I deserve too much credit. A lot of it is luck, and a lot of it is, what genes gave you. So, you were lucky. So I am a big believer in being equipped, that somebody equips you for it and you just get it. It's not your stuff. So I'm proud of all that. But I think more than that is the fact that I could experience two of the premier institutes in the country, meet with some brilliant people whose minds are incredibly bright, who think of stuff that you don't even consider in your normal level of thinking. I think that's the big thing. But what did I learn? So the IIT experience was very different. Getting into IIT is really tough. Getting out, you have to be really, really bad to not get out. It's they just out. So I found that hilarious, because people work so hard to get in, and then you sort of suddenly realize that actually sailing through this is very simple. So what it teaches you, and what I picked up from there, is an ability to think in a structured manner, right? What does advanced mathematics, triple integral teach you? I don't think you ever use it once you're out of that. I don't think anybody uses it, because even those who are into heavy duty engineering kind of fields, they don't have to solve a triple integral today manually. It gets done by somebody, by a computer that has been coded. So I think what it teaches you is to think in a step-by-step manner, methodical manner, logical thinking, rationality versus making illogical observations. So I think that was very, very strong there. And I think it allowed you to look at things in different perspective. Engineering drawing just teaches you how perspectives can change image. So I think that's a very, very big thing. IIM, on the other hand, was extremely different. IIM also has some very heavy duty hard courses, statistical methods, data analysis, this, that, and the other. But the ones that are new, which I found to be most exciting and which I think are the most useful, are anything to do with organizational dynamics, organizational behaviors, things that we think are fuddy-duddy, soft courses. They are the ones that really prove useful. So I picked up a lot of that from there. To my mind, both IIT and IIMs, my professor in IIM used to say that they are nothing but well-established job recruitment centers. They just prepare you for a job, and they give the employers ready-made skills, because what you do after that is completely different from what you learned. So it's not so much the courses that you do, it's so much the relationships that you build, the networks that you build, the logical thinking habits that you develop, the work around understanding dynamics of groups of people, which is after all an organization, where the stuff that I picked up and I found them to be the most useful part of my education, actually.
Excellent points, Venki, especially the one on where you develop relationships. I still remember a very close friend in a bank that I worked in. He was also the CRO, and he was part of the Asian Institute of Management at Manila. He did an MBA program there. And he said, Ravi, the 2 years that I was there, I sat in the front bench every day. I listened to all the lectures. I mean, I was among the top 3 guys in the class. And here he had a friend and colleague who used to possibly was one of those backbenchers, and he hung around with 3 or 4 some unknown guys from Malaysia. Later in life, this guy realizes that those 3 people who his friend hung around with in Malaysia were the sons of the richest guys there in Malaysia. They had massive business interests there. And within few years, his friend had become the CEO of that group. So he was telling me that the connections that guy invested in over a period of time is what, apart from, of course, the skills that he picked up while learning. It's not that the skills are not essential, but the connections and the connect and how do you nurture those connections matter absolutely in life. So, I mean, you're echoing the same things.
No, so if you look at our WhatsApp group, every university, every batch has that. So we also have it. You need any help today, you just put it, somebody will turn up saying, I know someone there. So getting that connect, I think, and getting stuff done. And you must be finding this because you're running an NGO, you live and breathe network and relationships.
Correct.
I think
Correct.
you are the best example of someone who uses that really, really well. I think that's the biggest benefit.
Excellent. And now I want to examine what some advice that you would give to the middle manager. So supposing you had the chance of going back in time, what's that one thing that you will tell the 30-year-old Venki?
So it's definitely not one thing. Right? 30-year-old Venki will have to learn lots.
Fine, then just say as many because this is essential for our young managers.
For me, and this is true for any manager at any level. No, somebody who's just starting out, my first suggestion to them is invest in yourself. Right? Now, this is not about just, attend all the training programs that your employer nominates you for, because that is driven by what the employer needs, what the employer wants. Now, you will need your plans, your actions, your requirements are completely different. So invest in yourself, both in terms of dollars, in terms of effort, and in terms of thinking. I think, and others call it continuous improvement. Others look at constantly learning, whatever you call it. But investing yourself, yours on you, is really, really crucial. Be it investing in grooming, looking your best when you are meeting others. I think first impressions matter a lot. Second, investing in the right amount of training, right kind of training. Even if it means you spend your dollars, I think we should do that because it is after all for you. So turning around and saying my employer didn't give me a chance to learn advanced management principles is no use. You can do that. And today, in this time and age, learning data sciences or learning Python programming from MIT or Harvard is possible. It's available for you. You don't need to go there and learn. I think so. The avenues are multiple. So investing in yourself is really, really important. And the second bit, which is very important, closely aligned with this, is what Andy Grove calls that the strategic inflection point. So identify those strategic inflection points, and that's where you've got to really pump in the dollars. It's exactly like any company, which is, their product is at the end of their cycle. You choose whether you want to invest further in the product, in building new technology around it, and then taking it to the next orbit. Our careers are the same. So, you find that there is a point where you think you have reached the top here, you need some external influences. That's when you invest and you enter the next orbit. I think that will be the fundamental advice I'll give. The second one is, don't wish away or don't think. Understanding organizational dynamics, building good relationships, spending time in networking, spending time in with people is going to be useless. It is one of the most useful things to develop. We discussed that just a few minutes ago. I think that's the other one. Invest as much as you invest in the hard elements of a job, right? On the softer pieces of a role. And to me, the softer pieces are often ignored. Why should I go and meet the HR team, or why should I meet the retail banking team in a bank. I think those are things that you realize very late that I wish I had done that, because that offers you a very different perspective, widens your horizons. I think it's really important to do that. So that's the second one I will give. Invest in relationships. I think that's the ultimate objective in everybody's life. I think we need to invest, spend time, and relationships are exactly like any other investment. You spend as much, the more time you spend on your stock portfolio, better it's likely to do, I think. So the more time you spend with people with whom you need to develop relationships, better relationships you will develop. So these three things, invest in yourself, continuously look to learn new things, which will help you focus on building strong relationships. Don't drop the ball there. And organizational dynamics, the whole around team dynamics, etc., matter. Invest in learning about those.
Amazing, amazing. One last question, Venki. When you spoke on how engineering drawing gave you a thing on how to look at an element from different aspects, correct? So the vantage point matters. Correct. You have a different vantage point now in this leadership role than you had in the when you applied for the role.
Correct.
What are some of the major differences you see in terms of now you're sitting in that seat and you're performing that role, and there is a completely different outlook to certain things at the job as well as in life, and the relationships and the compromises that have to be made vis-a-vis when you got into that role?
Yeah, I look, since we have all done senior roles before, so it's Correct. Not that you expected day and you ended up with night, but the degrees are quite surprisingly different. For example, I'm really surprised by the amount of time I spend in my current role in just talking to people in Australia and Singapore, etc. I knew that I needed to build stakeholder connects, etc. But I also thought that I will spend a lot more time on very hard facts, like how are my SLAs doing? Am I meeting the SOW objectives? I find that I need to spend very little time on that, but lot more on just calming nerves, soothing people, and generally keeping them informed about what's happening. So that's one big difference. So it's in a degree. I expected maybe 50-50, but I'm seeing that it's almost 75 to 25.
So stakeholder management is much more.
A big thing, I knew it will be big, but I never anticipated this to be big. I'm also surprised by the level of people-related issues that we tackle at this level, and they don't come with any levels. It's not that we only look at people who have done 20 years plus. There are problems with an entry level, and there are problems with senior levels, and they come to you. I never anticipated that I'll spend so much time in handling people related issues. I think it just proves the point that you realize that as you grow and in an organization, the extent of numbers driven financial objectives, time spent versus on people, the balance changes. You start with hardcore 100% numbers in a basic role, and then move up and where you start managing more team. But the extent of change is quite surprising. I think that was the other one. So again, it's all due about people and relationships. It's nothing new. You realize that you need to invest a lot more than what you thought you needed to do. And I quite enjoy it, but it came as a surprise that, oh God, I spent 8 hours in a day, but out of that 7 hours were just making phone calls to people who needed to be spoken to. And so you realize that what you always gave too much importance to actually are not that important. As long as you know people, you are able to navigate, and that's what relationships mean.
So this, customer and people, both of them have taking up most of your time as you see that, correct? Amazing. So Venki, thank you so much for spending time with us today in this Head to Heart series, and I look forward to having you maybe in the future again. In the same series as we continue through this.
Absolutely. I really enjoyed this interaction. Thank you so much. I think you have a brilliant way of articulating questions and, drawing from your experience. And so I look forward to be in sort of a regular feature with you. And thank you so much for inviting me. I really enjoyed it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Venkat.